Hello and welcome to this special series that we've been curating at ORF around the economy and the economic impact of COVID. What's also happened is that targets have moved and moved quite vigorously for people who've been watching both the global and the local economy. How does one plot the road ahead given the size of the damage that has occurred and what looks like the likely kind of recovery that we may map for ourselves? Joining me to talk about all of that is Sonal Verma, Chief Economist, India and Asia ex Japan at Nomura. Sonal, always a pleasure chatting with you. Let's go with your most recent estimate, which stands at minus 0.5% for the calendar year 2020 for India. What is that predicated on? And would it be safe to say this is not your last projection?
Absolutely. I think things are quite fluid. So there are three things that we're trying to get a handle on to, get to what quantitatively the growth impact could be. One is, how long the lockdowns last, which is sort of, as of now, we know how it's going to pan out. But I think more importantly, and the second aspect is even once the lockdowns end, how long the social distancing measures are going to be in place. And I think this is important because, life does not go back to normal after the lockdowns end. Infections in India are still rising, and therefore you do need activity to remain in check in the containment zone for sure. But even in the non-containment zone, you have to ensure that social distancing is in place. Therefore, output is going to stay below normal till infections are actually completely under control. And that could be well a fight most countries are fighting for most of this year, if not early next year. And the third aspect is, the knock-on effects, because when you have a shock as severe as a COVID shock, and this is a big cash flow shock for companies and for consumers, there are knock-on effects to consider. So you have companies, which may sort of defer their capex plans. Some companies will be pushed to the edge of bankruptcy. You have, households. There are food security issues. There's, job loss, income slowing down. There are fallouts on the financial sector because you will have more non-performing assets, rising. So, it's very dynamic. All three of them taking together. Let me say, what therefore is the main message, in terms of the economic impact of COVID-19. I think clearly this is one of the most significant economic shock world has seen. I mean, globally, this is being compared to, the Great Depression. And I think while the peak economic impact for India, for instance, will be in the April to June quarter, because activity needs to remain below normal to ensure the infection curve stays under control, it will actually take a long time to get back to normal. And therefore, the cumulative economic cost actually will be quite high for most countries.
What's also different this time around, Sonal, from India's perspective, is the kind of hit that services as a vertical is going to take. And that's really been sort of our saving grace over the last couple of quarters. Have you had a sense of, getting a grasp of how badly services is going to be impacted, both in terms of, extended consumer behavior, the impact of this kind of a wide sweep salary cut or job losses, because this is something we didn't even see during the global financial crisis.
Absolutely right. I mean, in fact, for most economies, 2018 and parts of 2019 were already a year of slowdown. But a lot of that slowdown was actually concentrated in the manufacturing sector. The services sector, like you said, were doing broadly okay, whereas this shock actually hits your services. And, for certain services, like, for instance, airlines, hotels, this is going to take a long time to actually go back to normal. And for them, therefore, it's really a matter of survival. How many of these services sectors, especially the smaller services entities, have cash flow to survive and come out on the other side of when the virus shock hits. And for India, where, more than 50% of the GDP actually comes from services, and a lot of the small scale employment also does take place in the services sectors. this can be a big hit, both in terms of the output hit as well as from an employment perspective. So yeah, I mean, it's extremely challenging. And the other aspect to keep in mind is, because some of the jobs are going to get impacted, there will potentially again be a fallout on the banking system. So, for instance, a lot of these unsecured retail loans that were potentially given to people working in the services industry, which, who so far had reasonably well, jobs and income growth outlook, that takes a hit. So typically in these, so you have the immediate impact on, the services industry. There's the secondary impact in terms of the availability of loan, which will happen for these specific individuals. And when your income is under strain, the first consumption that people put a lid on are some of your discretionary consumer items. And this is not just goods, but even consumer consumption of a lot of high-end services. Yeah, it actually makes it a lot more challenging for countries like India, which are more services dependent in this kind of a shock.
Which brings us to how much more the monetary policy can likely do in this environment, Sonal. I mean, for now, the thrust of India's moves have actually been on the monetary side, not the fiscal side, where the Reserve Bank is basically trying to push the banks to go out and lend a bit more. But given the environment you just painted out, does that seem likely? Can the RBI do much more?
Well, I think between monetary and fiscal, definitely this is a crisis that needs a bigger fiscal response than monetary. Now, there are things that, a regulator needs to do in terms of, giving regulatory forbearance, because a lot of individuals, companies will not be in a position to pay their loans. So regulatory forbearance is important. Cutting repo rate, of course, brings down the cost of capital. You ensure enough liquidity is available, which the Reserve Bank is doing. But the problem is one of transmission in India. We've entered this crisis with a very weak banking balance sheet. And therefore, while the RBI is sort of nudging banks to lend to some of the risky segments, let's say like SMEs, or put money in sort of lower rated NBFC papers, banks are reluctant and expectantly so, because they are capital constrained, and this weak growth hit actually makes the credit profile even weaker. So the credit risk premium is going up. So monetary policy has done some bit, more conventional rate cuts are likely. But I think for a true transmission to happen, given the banking channel is still partially clogged, we'll need to really go think outside the box in terms of unconventional policies. So this could be sort of more, Bank of England style funding for lending schemes, or sort of the government, for instance, directly giving like guarantee to banks on behalf of companies, so that the credit risk does not lie with the banks. So I think more unconventional is really the way to go. But between monetary and fiscal, I think it's really the fiscal which needs to stand up.
As you point out in your notes, Sonal, this is not the policy bazooka that generally the economy or any economy watchers are waiting for. On the fiscal side, though, India has been holding its hand back quite a bit. One point of view, of course, is that we simply don't have the room to do it like other countries like the US to really go that much high. And the other point of view is that perhaps it's not fiscal, it's lending we'll have to depend on. We're going to have to go out and borrow a lot more from international organizations and then pump that money into schemes as you outlined. Which way do you think it's going to go?
So it is true that we don't have that much fiscal capacity, but I think we are in a situation where there is no alternative, because if there is no intervention, what are the consequences? The consequences are essentially having a permanent damage to the economy in terms of significant number of bankruptcies, particularly for the SME sector, and unemployment staying very high. And these are not the consequences that we want to actually have. So I think fiscal has to step up. Now, yes, there is sort of limited space, but space will need to be created. Maybe there are ways to tap into new sources of funding. There have been certain suggestions made, for instance, by other authors like Arvind Subramaniam and Devesh Kapoor, in terms of raising more money from NREs, for instance, NRIs. I think government could look at a tax-free COVID bond to be raised from retail investors. For instance, some amount of secondary market accommodation can even happen from the Reserve Bank of India. But I worry less about funding of the deficit. I think, and not to forget, in this situation, the government will also be saving on capex. Because you cannot have full run capex activity because you need to maintain social distancing. So there is a bit of reorientation of spending that will happen. So I think I'm less worried about financing. Now, what needs to be done on the fiscal side is also important. Like I said, we are right now in a very critical period where we need to ensure there's no permanent damage because of this shock. This is essentially what I would call the survival policy strategy. So what does the government need to do to ensure better cash flow for companies and individuals? So for individuals, we've seen some amount of direct cash transfer. We've seen sort of food transfer programs for food security perspective. That definitely needs to be ramped up even more. From the company standpoint, to increase cash flows for companies, I think, for instance, reducing some of the utility charges for companies, sharing some of the fixed costs for companies, while their revenues are under pressure, is some burden sharing that the center can do. Tax dues, for instance, can be deferred. As I was mentioning earlier, guarantees coming in from the government to ensure that, loan is available to an SME and that they're not starved of liquidity. Is something, for instance, the government needs to intervene. And ultimately, if the banking sector is involved one way or the other, then the banking sector also needs to be recapitalized in a big way. So actually, there's a lot that the fiscal needs to do. Some reorientation of spending, some new sources of financing, some accommodation by the Reserve Bank, but fiscal has to step in. I don't think we can hide behind less fiscal space. Maybe we just need to be, more smart in terms of how we use that space.
Two-part question for you, Sonal. Some economists have also pointed out that in situations like these, which we haven't really experienced before, it's not just the size, it's also the importance of when you bring in that relief. It's extremely crucial to bring in that relief that you just alluded to at the right point, else the damage could get exacerbated. That's one. Do you agree with that? And the second is, do you buy the optimism of the IMF, which expects to see a big V-shaped recovery when we come out of this? How do you think, how are we going to crawl out of this?
So on your second question, Mitali, I think, the trajectory of growth is completely a function of how the virus pans out. And, either we have a herd immunity or, there's a vaccine. And until that is found, economies can, and, governments can only flatten out the curve. Therefore, like I said, while the initial impact may be significant in the April to June quarter, even in the quarters after that, activity will not go back to where we started off. So the cumulative hit actually is quite substantial, and therefore we need to be worried about the knock-on effects. One hopes that there's a significant pickup on the other side of the infection curve, but I think the trajectory completely boils down to how the virus plays out. And I don't think as economists we have that expertise to take that view. On your first question on the timing of fiscal stimulus, absolutely. I think we need to basically split the fiscal support into two parts. One is the survival strategy, which is what we need to do right now to ensure survival of companies and individuals, and this needs to be done now, which is more cash flow transfer related. And once the infection curve is under check, we activate Plan 2, which is the reconstruction policy strategy. Because on the other side of the virus, you will have an economy with very weak banking balance sheets, very weak corporate balance sheets, and much weaker household balance sheet. And therefore, the private sector, I think may not be in a position to kickstart the demand cycle that we would want. And therefore, the reconstruction side of the fiscal policy is when the government will need to come in through, things like more job-intensive infrastructure programs, which of course will come later on in this cycle.
One quick final question to you, Sonal, because the other thing I don't think any of us thought we would see in our lifetimes was crude trading in the negative. It was a trading aberration, of course, and for us, we depend more on Brent. But how much of a boon or a positive do you think this big slump in crude prices is going to be for India?
On an absolute basis, it's definitely a big boon because at current oil prices, relative to, let's say, FY20, India's net oil import bill can actually be close to $60 billion lower if oil stays around $25. So that's a big saving to have. And from companies' standpoint, it's a significant decline in your input costs. So to some extent, it helps. So I think it's a saving grace. In the overall scheme of things, though, when companies, like I said, are faced with, a sudden stop in cash flow and fixed costs to bear, it's a relief at the margin. And the other aspect to consider is, the government still taxes excise. The excise duties on petroleum are still quite high. Given the revenue shortfall government is facing, there is a risk that actually excise duties may go up even further. So actually the benefit is not really accruing to the consumer at this stage, but from a macro perspective, yes, it is a positive.
Wonderful speaking with you, Sonal. Thank you so much for taking the time out and sharing all your perspective. I appreciate your time and thoughts today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.